Today we're looking at a president who could charm, intimidate, and legislate like no other, and yet saw his presidency collapse under the weight of one war. Say hello to the 36th President, Lyndon B. Johnson. LBJ ranks in the middle tier of the Siena College Research Institute survey. Not a bottom dweller, but not in the Presidential Hall of Fame either. On the domestic front, he's a superstar. The Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, Medicare, Medicaid, and education reforms. It's a Mount Rushmore-sized record. But foreign policy, oof, Vietnam drags him down. The best way to describe LBJ's presidency is with a dish. Imagine a steaming bowl of his favorite meal, Pedernales River chili. At first bite, the chili is perfect, rich, savory, perfectly spiced. That's the Great Society layer. Civil rights progress, Medicare, and the war on poverty. It tastes like comfort, prosperity, and hope. Keep eating and you hit the bottom layer, and it's rough. The meat is gristly, the heat is unbearable, and every bite burns worse than the last. That's Vietnam, a war that looked manageable at first, but became a miserable quagmire that swallowed everything else. And here's the kicker. If you give it enough time, folks are willing to come back for another bowl. Just like with distance, Americans have started to remember LBJ more for his domestic wins than for the war that wrecked his presidency. So, LBJ's presidency is like a two-layer chili. The top part is satisfying, but the bottom drags the whole bowl down. Please welcome the Master of the Senate, the arm twister in chief, the Texas Tornado, Lyndon B. Johnson. Mr. President, you passed more legislation in 5 years than most presidents manage in 2 turns. But Vietnam, how do you explain the disconnect?
Son, I knew how to count votes in Congress. What I couldn't count was the jungles of Southeast Asia.
Well, you certainly had no problem getting things done here at home. Civil rights, Medicare, Medicaid. You changed the daily lives of millions of Americans.
Well, let's just say when you've been poor in Texas, you don't forget the folks at the bottom. I wanted to give them a fair shake, and I had the know-how to make it happen.
But a lot of people say your legacy is overshadowed by the war.
Well, it's hard to get credit for building the house when everyone's looking at the backyard fire.
True, but looking back, do you think you could have scaled back or stepped away sooner from Vietnam?
You don't quit mid-fight. Not in Texas, not in Washington. Maybe I stayed too long at that table, but I wasn't about to fold while the world was watching.
Some call that determination, but others call it stubbornness.
Well, son, they're usually the same thing. Just depends on whether you win or lose.
Fair enough. Okay, one last thing. You had all the fundamentals, political skills, vision, drive. What kept you out of the top presidential tier?
The American people, God bless them, don't really like being led where they don't want to go. You can show them the path, you can push a little. But if they don't believe in it, even the best leader will end up walking alone. And that's what happened to me.
Well said, Mr. President. Well said. Now, let's see what lessons and cautionary tales we can take from your whirlwind presidency. Lesson 1. Use power to benefit others. LBJ grew up poor in the Texas Hill Country. He taught school to Mexican-American children before entering politics, and he saw up close how poverty and discrimination limited opportunities. That memory drove him for the rest of his life. When he reached the White House, he unleashed the Great Society. This wasn't just tinkering around the edges. Medicare and Medicaid gave health care to the elderly and the poor. Head Start gave children early education opportunities. Federal aid expanded schools and universities. Environmental laws cleaned up the air and water. And perhaps most significantly, he pushed through the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And here's the thing, these laws didn't happen because Congress suddenly had a change of heart. They happened because LBJ shoved, wheeled, bullied, and sweet-talked them through it. He used what journalists called the Johnson treatment, looming over senators, jabbing fingers in their chests, sometimes practically cornering them until they agreed. Power is neither good nor bad. It depends on how you use it. LBJ used raw political muscle not just to help himself, but to transform society. It's proof that even the gruffest, toughest leaders can use their skills to widen the circle of opportunity. Lesson 2. Build relationships. When Johnson arrived in Congress in 1937, politics looked very different from today. Freshman members of Congress didn't spend their first week dialing for campaign cash. They shared dorm-style housing, ate in the same cafeteria, and even used the same communal showers. LBJ took full advantage. He wasn't the tallest, richest, or most polished, but he worked every hallway and handshake. He remembered names, family details, and hometown gossip. More importantly, he listened. He mapped out who had influence, what they cared about, and how to press their buttons. Was he filing all of this information away for later use? Sure. But the folks LBJ glad-handed wanted to be a part of his vision. That network became his secret weapon. Decades later, as president, Johnson knew which levers to pull, which favors to call in, and which personal stories to drop into a phone call to get a bill passed. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 didn't happen just because LBJ gave speeches. It happened because he knew the people in Congress well enough to twist arms, offer deals, and seal votes. Power isn't just about holding office, it's about knowing people. Build relationships, pay attention, and invest in others long before you need them. When the big moment comes, those connections can make all the difference. Lesson 3. Beware of hubris. In Greek mythology, heroes often fall because of hubris, excessive pride that blinds them to reality. Think Icarus flying too close to the sun. Lyndon Johnson's presidency followed the same tragic pattern. At home, he reached historic heights. Civil rights, Medicare, Medicaid, the war on poverty, his great society reshaped American life. But abroad, that same confidence curdled into arrogance. LBJ believes he could bend Vietnam to his will, just as he bent Congress. He poured in troops, escalated bombings, and told the public victory was around the corner even as the war became an unwinnable quagmire. The more he doubled down, the more credibility he lost. By 1968, his approval ratings collapsed. Protests filled the streets, and Johnson shocked the nation by announcing he would not seek re-election. The master of persuasion had been undone by his own belief that he could manage the unmanageable. Strengths become weakness when confidence turns to arrogance. Leaders must recognize which battles can be won and which ones will consume them. Humility isn't weakness, it's wisdom. All right, now let's spin that outside evidence wheel for LBJ and see where it lands. Pets! Perfect! Did you know one of America's most powerful presidents was also a Beagle guy? Lyndon B. Johnson had two famous Beagles named him and her. Yes, those were their real names. LBJ loved showing them off. In 1964, he caused a media frenzy by lifting one of the dogs by its ears during a photo op. Animal lovers were outraged. But Johnson, never one to back down, replied, "That's how you get their attention on the farm." Turns out lifting a beagle's ears was once a common way to check if it still had a good hunting voice. But LBJ wrote apology letters and even got advice from a vet. But these pups weren't just for show. They roamed the White House, they barked at meetings, and even stole food from visiting diplomats. A classic Beagle move. When Her passed away, Johnson was heartbroken. He eventually got more dogs, including one named Edgar, named after FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover. LBJ's dogs weren't just pets. They were part of his political performance. Loud, loyal, and impossible to ignore. That's all we have time for today, folks. Be sure to like and subscribe below and let us know in the comments which president you'd like to see next on the Presidential Bobblehead Show. We might just put your pick on the desk. If you want to learn more about Johnson's path to the presidency and its tragic end, check out UWorld's exam prep content for all of your AP courses.